Alright, today we might be embarking on a new little mini-series here on Archive Dive. That's because I'm working on a video for Atlas Pro right now about Mars. So today we are watching a program called Mars Minus Myth by Churchill Films. And hopefully for the next few weeks we'll be watching a few more Mars programs. I think this should be a fun follow-up to our Galapagos series that we just had. I'm super excited to get to watch this sort of stuff. This was published all the way back in 1972. So this is a bit of a newer program, at least relative to the other stuff we've been watching lately, but at the same time, this is still before we ever really went to Mars. So this should be an assessment of the red planet based solely on what we've observed from it from here on Earth. I don't know if that's exactly true. There was the Viking mission, but I don't know exactly when that took place. So let's dive in, right? Let's learn about Mars Minus Myth. And this was by Churchill Films. Did I say that? Churchill Films. I've never heard of that production company before, so that's why I figured it was worth mentioning. But here, let's go. Let's watch Mars Minus Myth.
Yeah, that's the first in this north collar mapping. Keep going. That's the same thing. There, that's the A-frame. We don't. That's a beautiful.
All right, so we don't have a lot of context for what we're talking about right now. So what we're seeing is people looking at very early images of what I imagine is the surface of the moon. I don't think this is Mars. I think this is the moon still.
There's the B. Keep going. Okay.
But it is very interesting to see, like, this is how people at NASA would look at things on screens. Like, they would have a whole, like, array of screens and they'd be looking at different things. Like, I don't know what the exact purpose of their research here is, but, like, it's interesting to see that, like, this is how you would conduct research or, like, study stuff within NASA. Again, I assume this is NASA, but I don't quite know for sure.
There were a need to do some repair.
Dr. Bruce Murray from the Mariner 9 television team. See, that's what I forget. I forget that there's a whole bunch of other missions as well, like the Mariner missions, the Viking missions. Weren't there others as well? Maybe the Cassini, but that didn't go to Mars, I don't think. But I forgot about all the little missions that we've sent out into space. So maybe we did have a better understanding of Mars than I really thought we did at this time, at least. I don't actually know where Mariner 9 went. Maybe that only went to the moon.
Work it'll be done before that Monday. I've been working with other scientists studying Mars since 1964 when Mariner 4 was launched.
He's been studying Mars since 1964. It's 1972. He's been studying Mars for 8 years, ever since Mariner 2 launched. Wow. See, what's so funny is, like, I study Mars. I told you guys I'm making a video on Mars, and, like, the amount of understanding we have on Mars is honestly, like, incredible. Like, it makes no sense that we know this many things about Mars. Like, you'll have to take my word for it. I can't just go into it right now, but, like, there is some stuff, like the chemical compositions of rocks and whatever. I'm dumbfounded every time I think about how we know about something on Mars. But it's even crazier to think about these guys talking about Mars, right? Like, this is at the very beginning of the space program. Like, the stuff they know about Mars is so primitive compared to the stuff that we now know about Mars. Again, everything I know about Mars now comes from these missions. So maybe we know the exact same amount, actually.
Before then, we could only guess what Mars was like, and many people did. But now that's all changed.
Well. Holy shit. Did you hear that, Evan? Oh my god, I thought that was a gunshot. Oh my god, I feel like oh my god, I feel like the top of my head just got struck by lightning. You gotta leave that in. At least let the audience know that I almost got struck by lightning there. Holy crap. Did you hear that? Like, was that audible on camera? Because that was crazy loud. Okay, let's keep going. Mars Minus Myth. Holy crap. Oh man, I really like the way this text appears though. This is a very similar text effect that I do on Atlas Pro, right? I have a typewriter sound effect whenever I make text appear on screen, and they're doing the same exact thing I'm doing. I love it so much. Oh, so this is narrated by Dr. Bruce Murray as well. Before we keep going, I just want to note that the person who studies Mars is a geologist. That is what his title is. Like, that is how you study Mars. You really only can study Mars through the lens of geology. That's the only thing left on the surface of Mars to study is its rocks. So the only way you gain an understanding for this planet is by understanding it through its rocks.
copy positive 31 Hertz.
The planet Mars is over 35 million miles away.
Oh my gosh, I love this already. This is a globe of Mars. This is like what we thought Mars looked like back in the day, back with our really primitive telescopes. And this is a globe made of Mars based on our understanding. Wow.
Even when it's closest to the Earth.
Did you hear that? There is some crazy thunder going on. You have to include this in the video now. Dude, I swear, I'm being hit by lightning as I speak. It might not be loud on these mics, but it's loud for me.
Even when it's closest to the Earth. It's hardly surprising that the early astronomers with primitive telescopes relied...
Early astronomers with primitive telescopes. Did I not just say that exact phrase? Maybe I said something similar, but I feel like I said those exact words. Oh, I also like how Mars is colored in red in this black and white image. I've done this for Atlas Pro a few times as well. Take a wood block engraving and color in one part to draw your focus there. I very much appreciate that they had the same thoughts for coloring in these images that I have had in my own videos.
Hardly surprising that the early astronomers with primitive telescopes relied heavily on their imaginations.
Early astronomers with primitive telescopes relied heavily on their imaginations. Yes, that is very true. If you don't know the story, originally we saw what we thought were canals on Mars. Because of our primitive telescopes, the way the glass made the planet look, there were all these crisscrossing lines all over the planet. And for a time, we seriously thought there were a series of canals across Mars dug by some humanoid alien race or whatever. Jeez, this thunder, holy crap. I hope you guys can hear me. I hope the audio is good, because I really do worry that I'm being drowned out by this thunder. But once upon a time, we really did truly believe that there were civilizations on Mars digging canals because of what we observed through primitive telescopes. So that statement that he just said right there was very, very true. I wonder if they're going to go into that at all or no, because that is another very interesting story about our understanding of Mars. The period when we thought that there was an alien civilization on Mars and we didn't even freak out or anything, you know?
In deciding what it was like.
Whoa, this is a weird shot. I don't know how they did this, but this is a complex image that we're seeing on screen. There are multiple layers of things happening, and I don't even know what I'm looking at really, but I know that it was hard to make this visual. I'm trying to appreciate it because I know a lot of work went into it, but it's tough to appreciate it when I don't even know what's happening to begin with. Oh man, are these depictions of what we thought the animals of Mars would be? I love the speculative biology that we applied to Mars. There's something to be learned from how we perceived Martian life might be during this time. That's a very interesting summation of our understanding of biology and outer space to be trying to envision alien life on Mars. This is such a weird sort of animal that we thought would be on Mars. A narwhal with an elephant tusk and humanoid arms with spikes all along its back and fins and flippers. What a bizarre animal. Imagine we arrived on Mars and this thing was the main animal there. It's funny to see what we thought we might find on Mars.
They saw Mars rotate once every 24 hours like the Earth.
Really? Mars rotates once every 24 hours? I'm pretty sure that's actually true, but I'm pretty sure it's actually 25 or 26 hours. It's not exactly how fast Earth rotates. Maybe it's 22 hours actually, but Mars does rotate pretty much at the same pace as Earth does. Even though it is a little different, it is pretty much the same.
And they saw its polar caps grow and shrink.
That's interesting. That's interesting that they already knew about the polar caps growing and shrinking. I mean, I guess that's not too hard to observe. It's just you definitely needed a good telescope in order to be able to tell that the polar ice was growing and shrinking. And you needed to be looking at Mars regularly throughout the year to see that seasonal change. So that shows just how much research was being put into Mars even during this time.
The first hand-drawn maps showed dark areas.
Wow, this is the first hand-drawn map of Mars. Wow, I wonder if I can recognize anything. I'm trying. I'll be honest, I know the map of Mars probably better than anyone else, or at least I'm pretty familiar with the map of Mars. I'm literally working to sell the map of Mars right now. Probably by the time you're watching this, on my store, there will be a Mars map for sale. You can buy a map of Mars from me, from Atlas Pro, really, right now. So I feel like I do have like some ability to add my input on this Martian map. Like I should be able to recognize some of this, and I can't really make sense of most of it, but there are some things that I feel like I do sort of understand. Like down here on the right in this corner, there's this big open white area, and that reminds me of the Hellas crater. It looks like they're indicating there's a big white area surrounded by more dark area, which I'm pretty sure is what the Hellas crater looks like. This is also right where the Hellas crater is, so I wouldn't be surprised if this right here was the Hellas crater. This over here on the left might be the Tharsis area, but it's tough to tell. Either way, this is a really interesting map. Like I'm so glad we are getting to see the first hand-drawn map of Mars pretty much ever. Like this is so interesting. Like I can't even tell you how interesting this is. Like this represents like a new world being mapped for the first time, you know? Like we hadn't even properly mapped the Earth yet, but we were trying to map Mars. Like 1840, like I have a map right over there from 1866, and it still has parts of Africa labeled as unknown. So the fact that we had even a crude map of Mars while parts of Africa were not even known about, like that's just so crazy, you know? I don't know how else to communicate how crazy interesting this map right in front of us is. But let's keep going. I've been talking about this for a while now.
Many thought these dark markings were...
Oh wow, here's an even better map. Yeah, that first map wasn't so good, but this other map by Green 1877, this is actually a remarkably accurate map. Like you can even see the Hellas Chasma, you can see the Tharsis. You can actually pick out details of the Martian surface with this. This is a really impressive map.
Plant life. Other astronomers thought they saw lines connecting certain dark areas.
Lines connecting certain dark areas. See, that's what I'm saying. They thought there were canals all over the planet, and we're getting to that. We're actually seeing the maps that people drew based on the thought that there were canals all over Mars. These are going to be some really fascinating maps. But wow, look at these maps. Yeah, like how interesting are these maps? I could spend like a whole hour just dissecting these maps. They're just so fascinating. It's so funny how wrong some of us got it too. Like they really thought there was a crazy complex series of canals spanning this entire planet. And they really drew it as such. Like they really put that amount of thought into these drawings. And it's so funny to see what is pretty much a fantasy alien world map, you know?
An American named Percival Lowell started a...
An American named Percival Lowell. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Percival Lowell, the guy, is the one who discovered Pluto. I'm pretty sure that's it. I've also made a video about this guy. Ironically, I actually made the video about this guy on this channel back when it used to be Astro Pro. Now that video is back on Atlas Pro, but it's just, I find it so funny that here I am back on this channel learning about this guy once again.
Lasting myth when he decided that the lines were actually canals built by intelligent inhabitants.
Wow, I didn't know that though. So it was Percy Lowell who decided these were canals. See, I thought everyone just thought they were canals. I didn't realize it was Percy specifically who decided they were canals. Wow, that adds like a whole nother aspect of this that I just didn't know about before. That's interesting. And look at this map of Mars. This is a very interesting map. It almost looks like abstract art. Mars, 1899, Percy Lowell. Like, wow, how crazy.
No photographs of Mars have ever shown any such canals.
Well, look at this picture. What's funny about this picture of Mars, if you watched my recent video on how old is this atlas part 2, I think we had this photo in that atlas. Like this is a very notable photo of Mars because this was the clearest image taken of the planet for a very long time. So I think this is actually like a famous image of Mars right here. Like I recognize this image of Mars from another book of mine.
But because of the great distance, even today's best telescopes don't show any real surface details up close.
That's so interesting that like we just did not know what any of this stuff was. Like we were seeing features on the surface, these albedo features, but we didn't actually know what this dark soil was, and we didn't see any other features either. It must have been such a mystery for a time.
I was part of the team which took the first close-up pictures of Mars.
The first close-up pictures of Mars. Oh, I think that's actually like, these are the photos that are in that atlas. Wow. That's so interesting that I'm watching from the guy's perspective who actually helped take those photos. Wow, I sometimes I'm amazed by the people that I get to learn about in these programs.
We want the pictures about 2 or 3 times that big, so we're talking about Mars gets to be about a couple of meters in diameter then.
They were taken as Mariner 4 flew within 6,200 miles of the planet.
Mariner 4, wow. Okay, so the Mariner program did pass by Mars. I forgot about that. Mariner 4, 1964, first close-up photos of Mars. Wow, so this is like the first close-up image we got to see of Mars. Still doesn't really reveal much about its surface, but it's impressive nonetheless. Wow, this is a pretty cool image. You can see like craters here. Though I would be a little disappointed by these photos. Like I would be expecting to see something crazy if I was seeing these for the first time. Like if everyone thought there were canals on Mars and then you start getting these photos and there's just nothing but like dead rocks, I don't know, that would be a little disappointing. Like there's no huge cities or canals or anything, you know? Like I understand why people would be disappointed.
To our surprise, they showed a cratered surface, much like our moon.
A cratered surface much like our moon. Yeah, pretty much identical to our moon, really. Mariner 4 results. Mars's atmosphere, carbon dioxide. That's so funny because I made a whole mention of that in the video that I'm working on for Mars right now. 100 times thinner than the Earth's. So another way of saying that is like 1% the thickness of the Earth's.
Also, the mission discovered that the atmosphere was much, much thinner than we had expected, nearly a vacuum.
See, that's crazy too, that we did think Mars had a thicker atmosphere, but then we learned it didn't. Like, again, it's amazing to see how our expectations of the Martian planet lined up with the reality of the Martian planet. Like, I already know the reality of the Martian planet. What I don't know is what we expected Mars to be like before we learned the reality. So it's interesting to get to hear from people who were learning these things for the first time ever, really. Like, these people are learning in real time that there isn't an alien civilization on Mars. Like, they all think there is one based on the photos they've seen before, but like now they're learning that there isn't.
Which dimmed the hopes of finding life there.
What's so funny is that even after thinking there was an alien civilization capable of like terraforming the entire planet of Mars, we still wanted to meet them. Like, we still wanted there to be life on Mars. Like, we would still choose that over there being no life. It's funny that like no matter what, we want there to be life on Mars.
2 more spacecraft flew past the planet and photographed 10% of the surface.
This is a pretty cool composite photo right here, getting to see like the parts of the planet that the Mariner spacecraft took photos of. Like, that's cool to see.
We discovered that the polar ice caps were thin layers of dry ice, rather than water ice as on Earth.
Ice cap is carbon dioxide ice. See, here's the thing though, like based on my understanding of Mars, the ice caps are actually water ice and carbon dioxide ice. Every single winter, carbon dioxide ice actually forms on top of the water ice. And that's the thing that expands and retracts during the Martian seasons, is the carbon dioxide ice sheet. But beneath that, there actually is water ice in the form of permafrost and some sort of ice cap as well. I don't know if they quite know that yet, or I don't know if they're making the assumption that there's no water on Mars whatsoever based on that. These are some really cool photos though. I feel like I gotta tell you guys that I didn't quite know where to start with this sort of subject, because we've obviously been making educational material about Mars for quite some time, so there are older programs than this that teach you about Mars, but I feel like this is the first program from this era that actually has like information, evidence, like photos of Mars. So I feel like this is the best place for us to start to begin learning about Mars. We'll see if that's true going forward. We'll see if there are any other programs on Mars that do a better job of introducing us to the surface and the history of Mars, but so far, this is doing a really good job.
and the rest of the pictures again showed practically nothing but craters. All these craters indicated to me that Mars was probably a dead hunk of rock, like the Moon, with little internal activity.
Yeah, see, what's so funny is I made a whole video about that too. I made a whole video about the moon's geography and why the moon looks like that. And ultimately, the lesson we learned from it, spoilers, is the moon looks like that because it is a dead geologic body. It does not have volcanism on its surface. Everything that happens on its surface is just preserved forever, which is why the only thing you see are impact craters, because that is the only thing happening to the moon. And Mars is very similar. The difference is Mars wasn't always dead. During the beginning of Mars's history, during the Noachian and Hesperian periods, Mars actually did have a bunch of water and a thicker atmosphere. But during this time, when we were first observing it, yes, Mars was definitely a dead body with a dead geography.
But we'd have to see the whole planet to know for sure.
That's funny. That's funny how they would see stuff like that and still think, maybe there's life somewhere else on the planet. You know, like to me, that alone tells me that this planet is not geologically active. And that tells me that it probably doesn't have life.
That would mean putting a spacecraft in orbit around Mars to take pictures over a period of months.
Your predicted downlink 159.3. Actual.
Wow, we're also getting to see like inside the NASA like Jet Propulsion Lab or whatever this is. Like we're getting to see inside the NASA laboratory. This is cool too. Like everyone wearing the white stuff to prevent dust and everything. Like this is real cool. This is a real cool glimpse inside of NASA during the 70s or during the 60s, I think, right? This is supposed to be the Mariner project. So yeah, this is the 60s.
Same. Tango 2423. Predicted laser 166. Stanton 0543.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4.
See, that's another thing that I feel like we forget about this era. Space exploration was actively taking place during this time. And people will say, well, we're still exploring space now, but not really, not the same way that they were exploring space. Like they were sending missions into space like all the time back then. Like we're on Mariner 9. Nowadays, we send pretty much nothing into space anymore. We send satellites, but we don't really send missions like this anymore, or at least not as regularly as we used to. It's interesting to get to see the space program back when we were actually launching missions regularly.
3, 2, 1, 0.
It's crazy like what we accomplished with this level of technology as well, right? Like we have so much more advanced computers nowadays, but we have not accomplished nearly the same things as they accomplished.
0, ignition.
I'm gonna make you guys watch the whole thing with me because this is too cool.
Mariner 9 was launched and began its 6-month trip to Mars.
Six-month trip to Mars. Is this the first photo it sent back? Telescope photos taken from Earth. All right, so this is a telescope photo.
A few months later, scientists watching Mars with telescopes saw a small dust storm in the southern hemisphere grow and spread across the surface.
Wow, that's really interesting, actually. I can't believe we were able to identify that as a dust storm just based on this very blurry, grainy image. But I guess it makes sense.
All markings gradually disappeared under the dust.
That's wild. That's wild that we sent Mariner 9 and then we witnessed this storm while it was traveling there. That is like, I don't know, I would have gotten worried if I was a researcher. Like, people must remember the dust storm of 1971 on Mars. You know, like there must have been people at NASA freaking out about this dust storm.
As the dust storm continued month after month, a lot of us began to get very anxious about whether the cameras would be able to see anything.
Yeah, that's crazy. What a coincidence that there was a planet-wide dust storm on Mars the same time we were sending Mariner 9.
Ready to copy? Roger, predicted downlink 159.3. Actual.
Is this a model of Mariner 9? Is that why we're zooming in on it? I think so. That's the only reason I can imagine we would do this camera move.
159.3.
When Mariner 9 finally reached Mars, signals sent from Earth put it into orbit. The first spacecraft ever to orbit another planet.
The first spacecraft to ever orbit another planet. Wow, I didn't know that. I mean, I didn't know what else I would have said for this. I just didn't realize how special this mission was. Interesting. So this is the first thing that's going to orbit Mars. So Mariner 9 was the first spacecraft to ever orbit Mars. So I have to imagine this is also where we got most of our images of Mars from, right? From Mariner 9? At least I have to imagine the best photos of Mars from this era came from Mariner 9.
The spacecraft passed within 800 miles of the surface on each orbit. We turned on its cameras and began...
This is a cool little animation. I definitely appreciate them explaining this to us, though. I feel like especially back during this time, nobody would have any understanding of how somebody would do something like this. Like, obviously nowadays, I know how you would map a planet by taking mosaic tiles, you know, but back then, people wouldn't understand that. So I very much appreciate us getting this visual lesson as well.
receiving the long-awaited first pictures.
I love that sound effect. Is that sound effect like a real sound effect? That's what the sound of a computer loading was, or is that just like an added sound effect? Because it's funny either way.
They showed virtually nothing.
I'm glad I'm not the only one a little disappointed by these photos. This is at least a crater. Oh, is it the dust though? Is that what it is? You can't see anything on the planet because of the dust? Wow, I didn't know that.
They showed virtually nothing. Nothing but dust. The only markings in most of the photographs were the dots in the camera grid.
Dang, so we really did go to Mars and we missed out on all those photos because the whole planet was under a dust storm. That's crazy. I didn't know Mars had dust storms that powerful to obscure the entire surface. Like, obviously, I'm aware that there are sandstorms on Mars. I just did not think that the entire planet's surface could be obscured like that. I guess they learned the hard way. I just learned the easy way, they just learned the hard way. Like, how many millions of dollars did we put into that just to not even be able to take photos?
We saw only two things on the entire surface of Mars: the bright south polar ice through the dust, and 4 large dark spots near the Martian equator.
4 large dark spots near the Martian equator. I do know what these dark spots are, though. That's so funny. I know exactly what they are, just based on their alignment. This one up here, that's Olympus Mons. Then there's Arcia Mons, Pavinus Mons. Oh, what's the other one? I hope I'm impressing you guys with my knowledge of the names of Martian volcanoes. Arcia Mons, Pavinus Mons, and there's another one. That's 3 of them. But I know these mountains. These are all the biggest shield volcanoes on Mars. I know them for sure. This is exactly their arrangement too. Like, I know this look exactly.
That spot at the upper left particularly caught our attention.
Upper left, that's Olympus Mons.
It was in the same location as a large, bright circular feature called Nix Olympica, long seen from the Earth. We named the other 3 spots with all the poetry of scientists: North Spot, Middle Spot, and South Spot.
That's funny. I never knew their names before that, but okay. North Spot, Middle Spot, South Spot. That's so funny because they didn't even know that they were volcanoes. They just knew they were dark spots, but they didn't know what those dark spots were. But I know now that they're volcanoes. That's so funny.
But if the surface of Mars was covered only with craters, what could be sticking up high enough to show above the dust storm?
That is interesting, actually. That is, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, if you can see them from above the dust storm, then that must have been blowing people's minds. Like, wait a second, these aren't craters. These are mountains. Like, oh man, that must have been crazy to realize. Like, I guess it's hard to tell if it's going into the Earth or coming out of the Earth based on these photos because it's directly above. So I guess I can understand, especially because there were craters at the center of these volcanoes, I can understand why somebody would be looking at this and be totally confused by what they were seeing. You know, the whole surface is covered, but then here, for some reason, you can see this depression in the ground. Like, how long would it take you to realize that's not a depression, that's not a crater, that's a mountain, you know?
When the dust finally cleared after nearly 2 agonizing months.
2 agonizing months. That's how long the dust storm lasted on Mars. That's wild.
What we saw was a real shock.
Yeah, look at this. This is Olympus Mons for sure. That must have been crazy to see for the first time. This is actually so cool that we're getting to see the photos taken by Mariner 9, and how the scientists interpreted them. Like, that's so cool.
The photos showed a gigantic volcano with a large crater at its top.
Gigantic. This is the biggest volcano in the solar system. Well, actually, maybe there's one on Io that's bigger, but this is the biggest like rock volcano.
At first, I really couldn't believe it. A volcano would mean that Mars was alive and active inside.
That's funny how the assumption is if they see a volcano, it's currently active. Like, obviously, Mars was geologically active in its past. That's when these volcanoes was made, but that activity has since died down. It's just funny that they didn't fully have that understanding yet. So seeing a volcano for them was actually probably incredibly exciting because they thought that Mars was actually geologically active still by seeing it. So seeing a volcano must have been incredibly exciting, as that signified that Mars was still geologically active, or at least it did to the people who were studying it during this time. Obviously now we know it wasn't, but when you first saw this volcano for the first time, people probably lost their minds.
And not a cold, dead planet. A close-up photo on the side of Nix Olympica showed what looked like lava flows.
That's funny, they call it Nix Olympia, not Olympus Mons. That's probably the name they gave to the volcano afterwards, but this albedo feature, I guess, was just called Nix Olympia, so that's why it's Olympia Mons.
A close-up photo on the side of Nix Olympica showed what looked like lava flows and tunnels.
Nix Olympica, that's funny. And this shows lava flows and tunnels. How do you see tunnels from the surface? But I guess I understand lava flows. Again, this must have been so exciting to first see when you actually think there might be lava flows currently flowing on Mars. Like, how exciting, you know? Computer enhanced photo of Nix Olympica. That's so interesting that this was once called Nix Olympica rather than Olympus Mons. That's just, I like that. I like that we learned an old name for a feature on Mars. You know, like, it makes sense for us to have like outdated names for places here on Earth, but it's another thing to have an old outdated name for a place that no human has ever even seen before, you know? Like, I don't know, there's something so funny about us using the antiquated name of Olympus Mons.
This one feature, this immense, flat, circular volcanic mountain, made us reconsider everything we'd previously written or said about Mars.
Yeah, that's fair. This is like a very notable feature on Mars that exposes an aspect of the planet's history that isn't really on display anywhere else. Like, you will only understand the true scale of volcanism that took place on Mars by seeing either Olympus Mons or those other three that we mentioned earlier, Arcia, Pavinus, and like Ascraeus or something. That's what I think it is. Arcia, Pavinus, and like Ascraeus Mons. Those are the other three that are in the area.
It's so immense it boggles the mind. The state of California is almost 300 miles across, yet Nix Olympica is even wider.
That's so funny that they compare it against California, because nowadays, I don't know if this is just me, but nowadays the big comparison to make between Olympus Mons and a feature on Earth is the country of France. If you put France and Olympus Mons on top of each other, they're pretty much like the same exact size. So it's funny to see that example, but with a different geographic entity.
It's by far the largest volcano known in our solar system.
Yeah, largest volcano known in the solar system, I said that.
Close-up photos were taken in orbit after orbit. When they were pieced together into a mosaic map, more surprises emerged.
Yeah, what's funny is, like, this is the most interesting part of Mars, really, for this purposes. This area is called the Tharsis Platform. It is the biggest volcanic structure in the solar system, way bigger than Olympus Mons. Like, Olympus Mons sits on top of the Tharsis Plateau. Like, below Olympus Mons is an even bigger platform of igneous rock. And that's what we're about to see right here, is our discovering of the Tharsis Plateau. Yeah, so there's Arceus, Pavinus, and I'm pretty sure it's Ascraeus Mons. I'm pretty sure those are these three.
The other three spots were also gigantic volcanoes, part of a large volcanic area.
Large volcanic area. I don't even know if they had a name for this volcanic area yet, but Tharsis is the name they would eventually apply to this area.
Each of these mountains is over 200 miles across.
Yeah, a lot of attention is given to Olympus Mons because it is the biggest volcano, but these volcanoes are like equally as big. I feel like nobody knows about these three volcanoes, but everyone knows about Olympus Mons. So I want to pay special attention to these three because these are like equally as significant as Olympus Mons in terms of Mars's volcanism. Are they going to give us their names, or did they not even have their names yet? That's so funny that I struggled to remember their names when they don't even know their names yet. They haven't even made their names yet, you know? That's really funny. Maybe not. Maybe they have their names, though. We'll see.
But the volcanic area was just the beginning.
Oh yeah, yeah, if you just found these volcanoes, what you're about to find to the east of them is even crazier. These volcanoes are here, but then to the east of them is the Valles Marineris, which is the greatest canyon anywhere in the solar system. It's so much bigger than the Grand Canyon. It's pretty much the length of the United States. It is the biggest canyon by far anywhere in the solar system. So just knowing that they're about to discover that as well, that's exciting too.
Next to it, we found a strange pattern of huge cracks.
Oh, okay, so this is the pattern that leads into the Valles Marineris. This is the cracking of the Tharsis. I forget what it's called. It's called like the Scopulus or something. But it's this very chaotic terrain of where the Tharsis igneous rock is breaking apart and being taken out through the Valles Marineris.
Which, because of its shape, was nicknamed the chandelier.
That's interesting. I can't really see a chandelier, but I'll take your word for it.
At one time in Mars history, there must have been violent movement and fracturing to cause this gigantic cracking. Near the chandelier, we found some smaller cracks we called the elephant's hide. The several different directions of
some smaller cracks called the elephant's hide. I think this is just a surface feature. I think this is just like how planet surfaces look.
These markings indicate various periods of cracking. These cracks and the volcanoes...
Yeah, wow, that is interesting. So yeah, that's cracks as the planet's crust is cooling, I think.
...mean that there has been enormous activity and heat beneath the surface of Mars. Next to the chandelier area, and actually stemming out from it...
Yeah, okay, now we're getting into the Valles Marineris. This is just like the entryway into the valleys, but now we're getting into the real thing.
...is another major discovery. Running along the equator of Mars...
I can't even imagine discovering this. Like, I guess discovering the volcanoes was, like, really cool, too. But, like, discovering the biggest erosive feature in the solar system that definitely suggests the presence of water on the planet, this is the coolest thing to discover. I feel like some of you don't even know what I'm talking about yet, but trust me, this is just such a cool feature to have discovered.
...is an immense canyon. Its size is extraordinary.
I forgot all the factoids about it, but I think they'll put the scale of this canyon into perspective as well. But trust me, this is like the biggest canyon, like by far anywhere in the solar system.
As Mariner 9...
So now we're in this area. There are parts of Mars that are like my favorite parts that I'm looking out for. I want to see Hebe's Chasma. Hebe's Chasma is right next to the Valles Marineris, but it's not technically connected to it.
...passed over Mars, instruments measured the depths of the canyon.
Oh wow, that was cool. That was a cross section. That's cool. Again, I love these animations and I love how they illustrate like the science at work here. Like I've made animations like this as well, but the difference is I didn't send a spacecraft to Mars. Well, I guess if you watch my video, maybe I did, but I didn't send Mariner 9 to Mars. So even though I make animations like this, the animation isn't as impressive as the information informing the animation.
It's over 3.5 miles deep in many places. If it were on...
Yeah, there you go. It's as long as the United States. I said that, right?
If it were on Earth, it would stretch from Boston to San Francisco. The Grand Canyon in Arizona would be a small crack by comparison. And this on a planet half the size of the Earth.
Yeah, that's the thing to remember too, is not only are these features way bigger than anything on Earth, but they're also on a planet that's like half the size of Earth. So like they really truly represent a significant portion of the planet's surface.
Over 1,000 photographs were pieced together to make a map showing the surface of Mars all the way around the planet.
Wow, a map of Mars's equator. That's a pretty cool map to make. Again, because Mars is so cold, its equator, again, is going to be the warmest part of the planet. So its equator is where you're going to expect to find the interesting stuff.
The other half of Mars, beyond the canyon, was mainly cratered, with no volcanoes, no canyons, nothing suggesting internal activity.
What's so funny is, again, like, I understand the history of Mars. The video I'm making is literally called A Timeline of Water on Mars. So I know the history of Mars now. Like, I understand it much better than the people making this program understood it. Like, they didn't have the access to the information that I have access to. So, like, I am capable of understanding the things that they are looking at better than they can. So it's a weird feeling I keep getting of wanting to explain to you guys what they don't actually know.
Little apparently had happened on this side of the planet over billions of years to disturb the ancient landscape.
Like, it must have been such a mystery to them, because like 90% of the planet is just craters, but then this one little part is like huge volcanoes, huge canyons, huge river valleys. It must have been such a riddle to people at the time to understand this planet. I feel lucky that I get to learn about Mars from a place of like near perfect understanding, whereas these people are learning about Mars from a place of near ignorance or near total not understanding. Like, they have no preconceptions, no notions, they have no intuitive understanding of this planet during this time.
It was in this area that the earlier spacecraft had photographed all the craters, leading us to believe that Mars was like the moon. The fact that Mars has volcanoes on one side and mainly craters on the other means liquid rock has poured out on that one side and destroyed the older landscapes there, but that this process hasn't yet spread around the whole planet.
Hasn't yet spread around the whole planet. I like that. That suggests that they think that volcanism is still actively taking place on the planet. You know, they're not saying, oh, this is the one spot that had volcanism. They're saying, oh, maybe one day volcanism will spread across the whole surface. That's funny that they are illustrating that they don't actually understand the planet perfectly yet. Which, again, I do understand. I do understand that there is no big form of volcanism on the planet today. It's funny that, like, I know more than these people, even though they're so much more knowledgeable on Mars than I am. You know, it's a weird paradox.
We now believe that Mars is just beginning to heat up inside.
That's really funny. Mars is just beginning to heat up inside. That is the opposite of the answer. That doesn't even make sense. I want to tell them to think about that for a second. Mars is starting to heat up. What is the source of that heat, you know? Like, once you think about it from a thermodynamics perspective, it's like, yeah, I don't think the planet is just magically heating itself back up. Like, I'm pretty sure it cooled down and it was hot a very long time ago. But that is funny. That is funny that, like, they just had the wrong idea for a long time about this.
We now believe that Mars is just beginning to heat up inside.
Didn't you know, the heaviest cratered place on the planet?
Mars is just, I can't get over the fact that they think Mars is just beginning to heat up. Like, no. Like, the fact that the person who just told me that was a professor of geology at Caltech just told me that Mars is starting to heat up. That's just like, that's so wild that they had the complete wrong idea. Like, even these incredibly smart people had the wrong idea.
Because where we happen to see Mariner 6.
It may look something like the Earth did billions of years ago.
Let's go look at the next one.
It may look something like the Earth did billions of years ago. I don't know. I don't know if the Earth was ever quite covered in craters the same way. Earth has always had erosive forces, whether it was plate tectonics or water, weather, climate, and that sort of stuff. Earth's surface has always been constantly remade, so I don't know if we ever actually looked like the surface of Mars. If anything, early Mars looked like the surface of Earth. I also say pretty much that exact statement in my video that I'm working on also.
Mariner 9 also gave us new information on the polar caps. For centuries, astronomers have seen them grow and shrink with the seasons.
For centuries, we've been observing the ice caps on Mars grow and shrink. Is that true? Centuries? Multiple 100-year units. We have known about the ice caps growing and shrinking on Mars. I find that hard to believe, but, honestly, we were studying it in the 1800s, so barely centuries could you say we've known Mars has had ice caps that expand and contract.
One of the earlier spacecraft photographed part of the south polar cap when it was almost at its maximum size. By contrast, when Mariner 9 arrived, the cap had shrunk to just this small patch.
See, and what they are studying is the expansion and contraction of the dry ice. What they are seeing here, the minimal amount of ice, that is the actual water ice. The part of the ice cap that never expands or decreases, that's the water ice. The part of the ice cap that expands during the winter, that's the dry ice.
If the cap was carbon dioxide as we had thought, this small remaining cap would completely disappear during the heat of the summer.
But it didn't because it's water.
So he programmed Mariner 9 to take a series of pictures so we could watch it disappear.
That's so funny. Again, they expected it to disappear because they assumed it was entirely carbon dioxide, but they learned something because it didn't entirely disappear. I love seeing science in action like that. Wow, this is cool. This is cool that we're getting incremental photos of the Martian ice cap. Again, incredible. Incredible that we're getting to enjoy this. What's even more incredible is that we're getting to watch this from an old documentary. This is not just modern footage. This is footage that's 50 years old. This is footage that's the same age as people's parents nowadays. These are some really cool shots though. You can really see the texture of the landscape and everything. This is just really cool.
To our surprise, the ice didn't disappear, but remained about the same size throughout the summer. We have now theorized that the polar caps are not all dry ice, but that this remaining cap is water ice, which doesn't disappear because it evaporates much more slowly.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I said. I mean, I didn't mention that it evaporates. I'm pretty sure the proper term is sublimate. It sublimates from a solid state into a gaseous state. I'm pretty sure that's what it does. It doesn't evaporate. But either way, I was right about this being water.
The polar caps also showed some strange terraced formations, which have made me wonder if the poles themselves might have wandered during the planet's history.
That would make sense. Don't our poles wander as well? Maybe magnetic poles, but maybe not geographic poles. I don't know.
This is the kind of mystery that causes scientists to speculate.
That is a very interesting structure of this ice cap. There is an entire doctoral dissertation out there waiting for somebody to actually understand how this came to be.
And to test their ideas and to argue.
Is right here. If you actually plotted on a stereographic net the location of the center of rays of curvature, there'd be a series of points, and there'd probably be a family of points lying off of here someplace.
Around 340.
It's so funny seeing these scientists just brainstorm with one another. Again, it makes sense that they had to do this, that they had to talk it out with other people to figure out the ideas that worked the best. But it's just interesting that we get to actually see their discussion, the way they communicate with one another and how they come up with their thoughts. They're just looking at a photograph and trying to imagine the geology that resulted in it.
So the question that arises is there pole wandering, and is this in fact...
But what's also funny is they're all guessing. None of them know any of this for sure. Every single thing they say is a hypothesis based on the images they received from Mariner 9. It's just again, it's so amazing to see this point in our study of this planet, Because this is pretty much what people still do. People will just look at images and come up with their own ideas. Because again, that is the only thing we have to do. No one has been to Mars. Everyone's ideas based on the same photos are equally as good as anyone else's ideas, when the only thing we have are photos.
The hallmark of a previous pole position. Pole positions, actually. And is that the explanation of the offset? And I'm going to assert that I think it is.
What's also really funny is just like the fact that this was important enough for them to be debating about. You know, like obviously I get that it's interesting and people had curiosity, but like, did it really need like funds attributed to it to figure out how Mars's ice cap came to be? Like, I don't know. I don't know if this is really important for us to learn, but it definitely is interesting.
Whatever it did in the past, it is doing now, or whatever it is doing now, it has done in the past.
That's so funny too. I love how he said that because that is so wrong. That is like the exact wrong mindset that whatever Mars has done in the past, it is doing now. Like, no, like he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that planets can change over time, that they lose heat to their environment and they cool off. Like, oh, he doesn't understand, you know? That's what's so crazy is this guy doesn't understand, but he understands Mars probably better than anyone else on the planet during this time. You know, like, oh, it's so crazy to see people who are most knowledgeable still not knowing things. It's wild.
What I see now is that all these things that enable us to see these streaks and things, whatever it is, it's not on the pole. Show me the thing that's centered on the present pole that is doing the thing, that making the thing that's going to be this kind of a mark later on.
That's funny. That's funny how he's saying, find me a planet now that is capable of leaving this mark behind. What he's saying is there are things on the Martian surface that cannot be explained by looking at Mars now. What he doesn't even realize, there's a part of Mars's history where it was very different than it is now. The Noachian and Hesperian periods. I know them by name, trust me. It's so fascinating to see him struggle to figure out why or how.
It's around this pole in the area here, because I think these are where it's forming. I think this is a relic from the past. There's erosion going on.
A relic from the past. See, like, did he just suggest for the first time that there's are relics from the past, that Mars was different in the past than it is now? Like, the fact that we just got to see him make that suggestion to the rest of these people, I feel like we just watched a new understanding of Mars arise for the first time. I don't know if that's really true, but like, I feel like it's true.
Logic.
Well, let me...
Like, this is the room of nerds that decided what is true and not true about a planet that nobody has been to. Like, these people are deciding what they think is true, and then that will determine what everyone else thinks is true as well. So, like, whatever they say, whatever they decide on, whatever ideas they have, are going to be the ideas that expand to the rest of the world. So seeing him come up with that idea that they might be relics of the past, that's so cool and important.
Finish up the set of ideas, and we'll come back to picking them apart, because there are lots of places to pick.
Probably the biggest argument focused on the question of water.
The biggest argument focuses on the question of water. Again, I'm working right now on a video about water on Mars, the timeline of water on Mars. These guys, if I could travel back in time and tell these guys my understanding of Mars, their minds would be blown. Like, everything I would tell them would make so much sense and yet be so new to them at the same time. Like, I really wish I could have a conversation with these guys, because we would get along and they would definitely like what I have to say. They might be a little disappointed by what I have to say also, but they would definitely appreciate the level of insight I have in the Martian surface and the history of water on Mars. Like, it's so incredible. It's so hard to communicate that, but like, I know the information that they so desperately want to know.
Close-up pictures of the edges of the canyon show erosion which some scientists feel looks very much like water erosion on Earth.
What's so funny is they're looking at a part of Mars for water erosion where, like, I wouldn't even bother looking. Like, there are other parts of Mars that have way more obvious signs of water erosion than this little part of the Valles Marineris. But obviously, they don't know that, so they're just going to look everywhere.
Water is essential for every form of life as we know it. And if water formed this feature, it could be an indication that life, too, might have formed.
See, I love that. I love that instant connection they make. That if water was on this planet enough to make this feature, then life might have been there. The reason I like that is because nowadays you would have to defend that claim with so much evidence. You would have to say, well, like this was possible, these, minerals were here, these, amino acids, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But here in this program, they can just say it. They can just say, well, there was water here, so there might have been life, because that's true. Like, we don't understand life or the origins of life well enough to say, based on the conditions that existed on Mars, life could or could not have existed. Again, that's part of what the video I'm working on is about. I very much appreciate that the moment water is brought up, the possibility for life is brought up as well.
Some of the other photos.
Oh yeah, this is a much better sign of water on Mars. This river valley, like this is the most surprising thing to see on the Martian surface, is just little rivulets like this.
Showed snake-like features, which look very much like riverbeds when compared to Earth photos.
And again, it's important to remember that during this time, these are some of the earliest photos we've seen of Earth from space as well. Like, we are learning what the surface of Mars looks like at the same time we are learning what the surface of the Earth looks like from space. So it's interesting that we are able to compare features that we're learning about for the first time on Earth to features that we're also learning about for the first time on Mars. Obviously, we're not learning about the Mississippi River for the first time, but we're learning about how it looks from space for the first time from these photos.
We know for a fact that liquid water cannot exist now on Mars because the atmosphere there is so nearly a vacuum.
See, yeah, that's a very good hint that Mars was not always like this. Like the fact that we can see evidence of water on Mars's surface, but today Mars's surface doesn't have the air pressure to sustain liquid water, tells us that there was a time in Mars's past when it did have a much greater air pressure and it did have liquid water. So they're starting to get it. Like, this water is what is telling us that Mars was different in the past. I take it for granted that I just know all this stuff. But back then, this was the only thing they had to go on to build up this case in their minds.
But was there ever flowing water here? Were conditions somehow different in the past than they are now?
The fact that they were positing that as a question, again, just tells you that we didn't know the answer back then. All the world's most informed minds on the planet of Mars could not have answered that question back then, which is just so wild because now that's part of our understanding of Mars. That's literally, I'm making a video about that question.
We can't answer these questions until a spacecraft lands and perhaps even returns a sample of the soil to the Earth.
That's crazy because we have landed missions on Mars, but we have not returned any back yet. But we actually are working on returning samples back to Earth. The Perseverance rover was built with this soil sampling thing on board. So it's taken soil samples, it's packed them into these tubes, and it's left them on Mars.
Mars is a very hostile place. My own opinion is that when man lands there, he won't find any kind of life as we now know it.
What's so funny is, again, I have interjected my own opinion into my video on Mars as well, of whether or not I think we will find life in Mars. I personally do think life arose on Mars. That's what my video is about, whether or not life could have arisen on Mars. I personally believe life could have arisen on Mars, and I also believe if that did happen, then life is still present on Mars. So I do very much appreciate him giving his thoughts, even though my opinion disagrees with his opinion.
Mariner 9 gave us our first close-up view of Mars' two small moons.
Two small moons. Can I name Mars's moons? That's a real quiz right there. I've talked about Mars so many times, but I've never brought up its moons. It has two. It's Phobos and Deimos, isn't it? I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Phobos and Deimos?
The outer moon, Deimos,
yes. All right, we're getting pats on the backs now.
is less than 8 miles in diameter. Phobos is larger.
Phobos, yeah, there we go. All right, that's both of them. That's a pat on the back. I knew both of Mars's moons. That is pat on the back worthy, if you ask me.
About 15 miles across. Computer enhancement of the Phobos pictures showed that its surface is pitted with craters.
Whoa, that was cool. The computer enhancement. How did they do that? Did they just take a better photo, but from the exact same angle? I don't know. How did that computer enhancement work?
We believe them.
That's the first time I've ever actually seen computer enhance, and it actually did it. Wow.
Moons are very old because the only time there were enough large meteorites near Mars to cause this amount of cratering was 4 or 5 billion years ago.
That's interesting, though, that the moons of Mars are also heavily cratered, which means they must have collided with a whole bunch of debris that also collided with the planet.
During the formation of our solar system. We also have an idea of the color of Mars. Black and white pictures were taken through 3 different color filters.
I like how they're explaining to us like how color film works now. Like you take pictures through 3 different colors and you overlay them. Like that's color film.
The pictures were then processed with computers, which reconstructed the planet's actual color.
Dang, so I think the preservation of the film is not allowing us to see the actual color they actually intended for us to see, because obviously Mars is a lot less purple than this, but it's still impressive that they were able to do this back then. I wish we could see the real color image that they produced, because I feel like that would give you more insight into the surface than what we're seeing here, because this is just kind of random splotchy color, because you don't even know the real color of anything, so, you know, whatever.
This is very close to the color an astronaut would see if he were in orbit. The lone Mariner 9 spacecraft photographed Mars for nearly a year and returned over 7,000 close-up pictures covering the entire surface. From these photos...
Wow, so Mariner 9 is really the spacecraft we have to thank for our mapping of Mars.
We made the first global map of another planet.
Wow, hang on, this is cool actually. This is really sick. This is a very cool and accurate map of Mars. So you can see Hellas down here, and you can see Olympus Mons, Arcia Pavinus, and Ascraeus. You can see Argyre crater down here. You can sort of see the Isidis Planitia. You can definitely see the Utopia Planitia, but you have the poles cut off, so you can't see the poles. But you can see all the major features of Mars through this. This is pretty cool. This is like probably the best map of Mars that was ever made at the time when this was made. This is definitely the most accurate map of Mars ever made when it was first produced. Oh, I love that. I love how they label the Valles Marineris the Giant Canyon. Like, they didn't even give it a name yet. They just called it the Giant Canyon. And the volcanoes, just volcanoes. And then Nix Olympica, not Olympus Mons, Nix Olympica. I love learning about the planet before we even had names for its features. Like, that's how you know this is the earliest form of this knowledge. Like, we didn't even have terms to describe these features yet. That's so cool.
This map.
And then, yeah, this cratered area, this is what, the Noakis Terra, I think? I'm pretty sure. If there are any Mars experts out there, check me on that. But I'm pretty sure this cratered area is the Noakis Terra as well.
This map will be the basis of all future maps of Mars.
I hope you guys are impressed with how many features of Mars I know the name of.
And it will be used to choose landing sites for future missions.
Like, if there was anyone to actually go exploring Mars, it would be me. Like, I feel like I know Mars better than anyone else alive. That's probably not true. There are probably people who get paid to study the surface of Mars for NASA, but I still feel incredibly knowledgeable in this field.
At the very end of the mission, just before the stabilizing gases ran out, Mariner 9 returned stunning wide-angle pictures showing the whole planet from the North Polar Cap all the way down to the equator.
These are such amazing photos. Like, it's hard to even grasp the amount of work that went into producing this photo, you know? Like, this was not only taken from a spacecraft, like, oh my God, like, it's just, it really is amazing. That's all I can say at this point.
And including Nix Olympica and the other volcanoes. The mass of information from Mariner 9 has overwhelmed the scientists.
The mass of information from Mariner 9 has overwhelmed the scientists. That's funny, that it took so many photos. Again, I understand that. You're pretty much trying to put the image of an entire planet together.
We are completely changing our ideas about our neighbor planet, and we'll be studying these photos and other data for years.
Yeah, that's crazy too that we're still studying these photos from the Mariner 9 because they took so many places. Like if you want to know something specific, like you have to go back to the photographs.
Certainly there will be other surprises when we land on the surface.
When we land on the surface, it's funny how they're like so sure that we are going to land on the surface. I mean, I guess we did, but I feel like they think that we're going to send people there. I don't think they realize that the only Martians were going to be robots.
But with Mariner 9, we've begun to see Mars for the first time as it really is.
Yeah, this really is seeing Mars for the first time. Oh, and that's the end. Okay, cool. All right, well, at least I feel a lot better about choosing this to be our introduction into Mars. I feel like there is no better way to begin learning about the planet than to see the way that we started to learn about the planet. Like, this is the beginning of us accumulating knowledge on this planet. Before this program, pretty much, we didn't really know anything about the planet besides what we could see through primitive telescopes. So what we learned today was a really good foundation for the study of Mars going forward, which I'm happy with. I'm very excited to continue this. If you couldn't tell, I know a whole lot about Mars. Here on Earth, environmental science is a hands-on, physical, real science. But when you apply natural science or environmental science to Mars, it becomes a theoretical science like physics or chemistry. That's the fun part of studying Mars for me, is it's the theoretical environmental aspects of Mars that push our understanding of things like geology and how the Earth works. That's why I think studying Mars is so fascinating, especially to somebody like me who enjoys studying the environment of the Earth. So this was just a good history lesson on what we thought Mars used to be like, and a history lesson for us to begin to see how we actually started to understand this planet. Like, we learned that pretty much our entire understanding of Mars comes from photographs of it. I mean, now we have like rovers on Mars to take samples of things, but back then, the only insight we could gain into this planet were from photographs. So I just feel like this is a really good first step in the journey towards understanding Mars that we are embarking on now. So I'm so happy that we got to watch this. I am so impressed with the information that was contained within, and I am so excited to continue learning about Mars in the future, and I hope you guys are too. And if you want to help support this channel, you can follow the link in the description that'll take you over to the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive is where I get all these old programs from, so if you want to support me, donate to them. And with that, I think we're ready to cut to black.